trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it's cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road and overdrive, baby. Hit the road and overdrive. This city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. Now I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. But when I let it go this time. Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But try to please. Oh yeah, welcome to the Two Tone Talk Podcast, the Two Tone by God Pod. I am your host, Brad Steele. This is episode 76, and I must apologize to the YouTube crew because I have no idea what just happened. I was doing a live stream, it got to the end of the countdown. I went to get this thing going, and the whole computer just crashed, and I had to start the whole thing over. I have no idea what happened, so I apologize for that. But now we're here. Two Tone Talk Podcast. It is the Monday edition, and I've already been asked in the chat, will there be a bonus episode this week if the Titans make a hire at head coach? And the answer is, oh yeah. If we hire a head coach at any time this week that's not Monday or Friday, there will be a bonus episode should that occur. It feels as though we are getting closer and closer to the Tennessee Titans hiring a new head coach. Feels like we're getting closer. Last week, it just kind of felt like, we're taking our time, we're playing the field. This week feels like we are getting closer. Feels like we've just been dating around, going on dates with these dudes. Now it's time to pick one. Okay. Brian Callahan has emerged as the favorite. I think the Ben Johnson ship has sailed. Okay. The Ben Johnson ship has sailed. Ben Johnson, the only team that wanted to interview him that he is still not interviewed with is the Tennessee Titans. He made it a point. Now, I don't know. I mean, he could still schedule an interview, but he made it a point to get his interviews in with the other teams. And as far as Ben Johnson goes, the Tennessee Titans are still just languishing out here in the desert, waiting for an interview with him that I am quite frankly believing is not going to come. We did interview Bobby Slowick, so I guess he's still an option. But Brian Callahan, who has really emerged as a favorite in a lot of people's minds, including mine, he's been the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. He has emerged as a favorite. He is having his second in-person interview with the Tennessee Titans today, probably right now. And the Tennessee Titans also had a second interview with Panthers offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. So the Rooney Rule, and I hate the Rooney Rule. Not that I hate you know what I mean. I hate the idea that it's like a box you have to check off. Like we have to interview a black coach, and so many people automatically when they see a black coach get interviewed, they think, oh, it's the Rooney Rule. It's just a Rooney Rule. It's like, no. Like that's doesn't have to just be what they're not. They don't have to just be checking a box. They could be interested in him as the head coach. But they have interviewed Thomas Brown as the second interview, and a lot of people are saying that's the Rooney Rule. What I will say is that they have cleared all of the things that they have to do in terms of the Rooney Rule, meaning that the Tennessee Titans can now hire a head coach. They are literally on the clock as they have fulfilled all of their obligations and they can announce a new head coach whenever they want. They're interviewing Brian Callahan today, and they have requested an interview later in the week with Dan Quinn. Now, I have been clear on this podcast. I believe that Dan Quinn deserves a shot to be a head coach somewhere again in the league. He coached the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we know what happened when they got there, the 28-3 meltdown, and it was all downhill from there for the Falcons, but he has done a good job as the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys for the last however many years. Even if you got to disregard that last game against the Packers, he's done a good job. So I am of the belief that, like, for a team like the Carolina Panthers, Dan Quinn, I think, would be a great hire for them. But hard for me to get excited about the Titans potentially hiring Dan Quinn. Not just that he's a defensive coach, and we've had our fair share of defensive coaches, but it's just he really feels like another Mike Vrabel. And if we're just going to hire Dan Quinn, I'm just like, man, why we should have just kept Vrabel then if we're going to hire Quinn. Maybe I'm wrong. At the end of the day, and I've seen a lot of people on Titans Twitter talking about this today, at the end of the day, we have to just guess. We have to guess who we think's going to be a good head coach. Because, yeah, we think that Brian Callahan or Bobby Slowick or Ben Johnson, we think those guys are going to be great head coaches, but there are guys every coaching cycle who people think are going to be awesome. I mean, I remember when Josh McDaniels was a hot commodity for teams. There were people who didn't want Vrabel when the Titans hired him. There are coaches every year who feel like they're going to be a big deal and then they end up just not being very good. There are going to be coaches every year that people are not excited for, and then they end up. I mean, there were a lot of Lions fans who weren't excited about Dan Campbell. I bet they are now, So at the end of the day, I mean, it's a shot in the dark that a coach is going to be good, or great. It's just one of those things. Like, I'm not going to say if we hire Dan Quinn that it's the end of the franchise, but it will not be a very encouraging hire. I think everybody's kind of wanting Brian Callahan at this point. And so we'll see. I'm refreshing Twitter today. My guess, nothing new on Twitter. My guess is that it's going to be Callahan. Because there are two other teams that we know of who are interested in Brian Callahan. It's the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Those are the two teams who have expressed interest in Brian Callahan coming in to being their head coach. The Falcons, I just feel like they're going to go with Bill Belichick. I think that Belichick's name has been attached to the Falcons this whole process. Belichick's had 2 interviews. I just feel like the Falcons are going to end up with Belichick. And as far as Carolina goes, if your options are to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans or the Carolina Panthers, I just don't see how the Panthers are a more appealing job. The Titans have a top 10 draft pick. They have all sorts of cap space. I don't know what Carolina's cap situation is, but I know it's not as good as Tennessee's. Tennessee's got money to work with. They've got a top 10 draft pick. They've got a promising young quarterback, as Amy Adams Strunk called Will Levis. Like, they've got some pieces in place, like Jeffrey Simmons, like Harold Landry. DeAndre Hopkins is set to be back. I just think that if it comes down to the Titans or the Panthers for Brian Callahan, unless the Panthers are willing to pay him an unbelievable amount of money that the Titans can't match, I just don't see how the Carolina Panthers are a more appealing job than the Tennessee Titans right now. The Panthers don't even have a first-round draft pick. Bryce Young, yes, you have him, but he didn't show as much promise as Will Levis did. Bryce Young had like maybe one good game all year. Will Levis didn't come in till halfway through the season, and Will Levis showed way more than Bryce Young. You know? So if it comes down to, for Brian Callahan, if it comes down to the Titans or the Panthers, unless the Panthers are just willing to pay out of their butts for this guy, I don't see why. And even if the Falcons are interested in him, I mean, you could make the argument, I think, that the Titans might be a more appealing job than the Falcons, just because the Falcons have so much uncertainty at the quarterback position. I mean, they're picking at number 8, number 9. Obviously, if they don't trade up, which they could, but if they don't trade up, they're not going to land Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I mean, you could have, Michael Penix, but the way Michael Penix college career ended, I don't know how excited people are going to be about him. Bo Nix, maybe. So again, I don't know what the Panthers cap situation is. I don't know what the Falcons cap situation is, but I know that it's not as good as the Titans. And the Titans are picking at number 7. And I feel like of those three, if I'm Brian Callahan, the Titans are the best option for him. And I think he's the best option for the Titans. And so I will be very disappointed if they don't land Brian Callahan as their next head coach. We'll see. But it feels like we're getting closer. And I think that and I asked a question today on Twitter, and it was probably a stupid question, but there are a lot of people who feel like the Titans could hire Brian Callahan as early as today. And I asked the question, just should have known the answer, but said, hey, why would you even schedule the interview with Dan Quinn if you feel like you're going to hire Brian Callahan? And they said, everybody on Twitter kind of answered my question with an answer that made sense. What if Callahan said, no, you got to have somebody else lined up? I would hope we have somebody else other than just Dan Quinn lined up if Callahan says no. Or, if Callahan wants to negotiate with other teams, you've got to have negotiating tactics to say, hey, we have other people lined up. If you're, so that was a stupid question on my part. I'm just going to tell you that was an idiotic thing to say, and I should be made fun of for asking it. But Brian Callahan was a guy that was kind of, I didn't know a lot about him at the start of this offseason a couple weeks ago, but the more I've read up on him, the more I've heard what he has to say, the more I've heard his philosophies on. I mean, I told you guys last week, I quoted from an interview what his philosophy is as far as offense and the way it needs to be done. And to put that up beside Mike Vrabel, it sounds like they're talking about two different sports. So if you're looking for this offense to go in a new direction, Brian Callahan is the guy. So just sit back and see what happens this week. It's kind of nerve-wracking. I said today on Twitter, anybody else just got a horrible feeling that we're going to hire the wrong guy? I mean, we've kind of had our hopes up for Callahan or Slowick or somebody like that. Obviously, we've heard Aaron Glenn's name thrown around too. Lions defensive coordinator. Some people have talked about him. The Titans did interview him. They currently don't have a second interview. And so I don't know if we are to just rule out anybody that hasn't gotten a second interview yet. I don't know. I want to talk about the Bills and the Chiefs last night, because I really thought, I went 3-1 on my picks for this weekend. And the one I got wrong, I picked the Bills over the Chiefs. Because I just thought, you know what? They're finally playing in Buffalo. I feel like they always play in Kansas City. They're finally playing in Buffalo. Those fans, they have a lot of pent-up frustration against Kansas City, because it's always Kansas City that Buffalo can't get past. Finally playing on their home turf. Chiefs are down compared to what they usually are. Just feel like this is going to be the Bills' night. Well, I was wrong. Tough weekend to be a kicker, by the way. Packers kicker missed a huge kick. Bills kicker obviously missed a huge kick. Just a tough weekend to be a kicker, you know. But the Bills came up short again. And I don't know if any of you guys watch professional wrestling, the WWE, things like that, but I said last night, some of you may get this reference. If not, I'm going to move on from it quick so you don't get bored. The Kansas City Chiefs are Roman Reigns at last year's WrestleMania. The Buffalo Bills are Cody Rhodes at last year's WrestleMania. It was finally going to be their moment. Oh, I'm going to finish the story. We're going to finish the story. We're finally going to beat these Chiefs, and we're going to move on, and we're going to go to the Super Bowl. We're finally going to do it. This is it. You could feel it. But nope. At the end of the day, it was the same old story. The Bills cannot beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And at this point, you got to wonder if that's just the end of it. Because the Bills, you look at the Bills' cap space for this offseason, there's a good chance this Bills team could look a lot different next season. This Bills team, I mean, I'm talking about Stephon Diggs could be gone. I'm talking about Von Miller, who's done nothing for them. I mean, they have a list of guys whose contracts are up, and they don't have a lot of money to work with. So this Bills team, and I saw 2474 in the chat, that I finally repressed Cody's loss at WrestleMania. I'm currently having Vietnam flashbacks. I'm telling you that the Buffalo Bills are Cody Rhodes. They keep saying they're going to finish the story, and they never do. And I don't know if they ever will now, because things could look a lot different for them next year. And you've got a Jets team in that division that's going to have Aaron Rodgers back, and they're going to be a heavy favorite in a lot of people's eyes. The Dolphins obviously had a good year this year, not the year they hoped for, but the Dolphins, are going to be around. The Patriots are going to have a new coach, probably, one of those top 3 quarterbacks in the draft. So, I mean, the Bills will still have Josh Allen, but, and a lot of people are talking about Josh Allen today. Josh Allen missed some throws last night, He missed some throws. Everybody wants to blame the kicker for missing the field goal, but not a lot of people are talking about Josh Allen missing a wide open receiver in the end zone a couple plays prior to that missed field goal. The Bills had their chances. Stephon Diggs, you remember there was an 80-yard bomb that Josh Allen threw to Stephon Diggs, and he dropped it right in his hands, and he dropped it. Would have at least gotten him in the red zone. If not, would have been a touchdown. So, I mean, there's enough blame to go around, and the feeling I got watching it on television when this thing was over is that these Buffalo Bills fans were watching their Super Bowl window close in real time. I mean, football can be a heartbreaking thing. It can really be a heartbreaker because that stadium, as rowdy as those fans are, man, they went silent. They felt like this was it. We're finally going to beat the Chiefs. We're finally going to do it. In the playoffs, we're finally going to get past this obstacle that we just haven't been able to get past. Then they didn't. They just failed again. And I can't imagine how demoralizing that is to keep getting put out by the same team over and over and over. I don't know where the Bills go from here. I mean, there's some questions about Sean McDermott. I mean, there's people saying, should the Bills move on from him? I don't think they will. But it's just a mess. It went from Buffalo feeling like they had salvaged their season and they were really going to make it happen to they're done again at the hands of the Chiefs again. Just it's a dark day in Buffalo. And let's talk about the Chiefs. A lot of people hate it, but they are the new Patriots. The Chiefs are the new Patriots. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be there till the end. They may not win the Super Bowl every year. They may not get to the Super Bowl every year, but they're going to be in the mix. Every league's got one. In the NBA, it was the Golden State Warriors for a while. It's been the Alabama Crimson Tide in college football. It was the Patriots in the NFL, and now it's the Chiefs. They're always going to be there. Because we keep talking about all these other quarterbacks in the league and how great they are and how they're going to ascend and Lamar Jackson's going to have his chance. We keep talking about all these other great young quarterbacks and how they're going to ascend and they're going to be the new big thing. Mahomes is the only one who keeps doing it. All these other guys, we're talking about it. We're talking about how they're going to win a Super Bowl one day. Mahomes is the only one who keeps regularly doing it, at least getting to the Super Bowl. He's the only one who continues to do it. You can say whatever you want about Patrick Mahomes. But I'm just telling you right now. I said it last year after they won the Super Bowl. He's out there with a bunch of mid talent at wide receiver. I know he's got Kelsey, but as far as the wide receivers, Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, like he's got a bunch of dudes who make up a very mid wide receiving core. And here they are. I mean, they looked horrible at one point late in the season. There was talk about whether they were going to let the Broncos or somebody come back and win the division. But lo and behold, they're just in the AFC Championship again. Again. And, I mean, Andy Reid's a great coach. Patrick Mahomes, a generational quarterback. The people are saying when it's all said and done, will Patrick Mahomes surpass Tom Brady as being the greatest of all time? I think it's too early to have that conversation. I think it's too early. We'll have to see how things continue to go for Mahomes, but it's possible. I mean, you can hate it. You can love it. Ric Flair said, whether you love it, whether you hate it, it's still the best thing going today. That's the Chiefs. That's the Chiefs. That's Mahomes. Sometimes, do they get help from the referees? I think everybody gets help from the referees sometimes. But, the Chiefs, they just will not be denied. But they better eat their Wheaties on Sunday. Because if anybody's got what it takes to deny them this year, they're wearing purple and they live in Baltimore. Let's talk about the other games. Ravens all over the Texans. I thought the Texans would be more competitive. And they were for a half. I mean, it was tied 10-10 at the half. But the Ravens, especially in the second half of this game, just dominated the Houston Texans. And I'm telling you, I hate the Ravens, but I was rooting for the Ravens in this game because I don't want to see anybody in the AFC South do good. I don't want to see the Texans, Colts, or Jaguars have any success at all. So I wanted the Texans out of there. I want Texans out of there, and they're out, so I'm good. Ravens 34-10 final, and the only touchdown that Houston scored was a punt return. They didn't score any offensive touchdowns. Let me be petty for a second. I would have thought that the greatest rookie quarterback in the history of space and time would have been able to score a touchdown. I would have thought, like the way people talk about him, I mean, I thought Jesus Christ had walked out there and was taking snaps for Houston. I mean, they won't even let the boy say Jesus' name on the air. I don't know if you saw that on ESPN, but either way, I mean, and I like CJ Stroud. Obviously, he's a great young quarterback, but I mean, this past week, all I heard was that CJ Stroud, I mean, this guy's going to run this conference for the next 10 years. This guy's, have you ever noticed how NFL fans are such, and I fall into this trap too, we are such prisoners of the moment. I saw people on Twitter that were like, well, it's obvious Houston's going to run this division for the next decade. Like, how can you say that? Like, I understand, like, Houston's future looks bright right now, right? But this is the NFL. Like, we don't know what's going to happen from one week to the next. And you're going to try to tell me what's going to happen for the next 5-6 years? Like, it's the same people all offseason that were like, Jacksonville's going to run this division for the next decade. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a top 5 quarterback. I heard it all offseason. And then they ended up being booty cheeks. I don't think the Texans are going to be booty cheeks next year. I think they're going to be quite good. They're probably going to be a lot of people's pick to win the division. But, it's just like everybody all week was like, oh, CJ Stroud and Lamar Jackson, this is going to be a great matchup. It wasn't. We were lied to. It wasn't. CJ Stroud, and this is not the poor kid's fault, he's just not on the level of Lamar Jackson yet. You guys try to put him there, but he's just not there yet. And neither, Will Levis ain't either. Don't think just because it's a Titans podcast that I'm going to come on here and tell you that Will Levis is better than CJ Stroud. That's not what I'm here to say. I'm just here to say that, I got to hear people all the time talk about how the Colts are going to be great next year because of Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson played in like 3 games. I'm not going to say he's going to be bad. I'm just saying, how can you confidently sit here and be like, the Colts with Anthony Richardson are going to be nasty this year? How can you say that? What have you seen from Anthony Richardson? Like, he's played in 3 games. I don't know. Maybe it just rubs me the wrong way because I'm a Titans fan. I thought the Texans would play better than they did, but they got run out of the stadium. They got outscored 24-0 in the second half. I mean, it was just not even close. Ravens, I'm sick of overcomplicating it. I'm sick of making it harder than it needs to be. The Ravens have proven time and time again this season they're the best team in the league. I mean, they've proven it time and time again. And I know as Titans fans, we don't like the Ravens. But the Ravens are the team to beat. They have beat up on San Francisco on Christmas Day. They beat up on Miami. They beat up on Detroit, who's still playing now. They beat up on Houston in the divisional round. I mean, I'm sick of overcomplicating it. The Ravens are the best team. And anybody that wants to hold up that trophy at the end of the year, they're going to have to go through Baltimore to do it. Lamar Jackson's the MVP of the league. He's playing unbelievable. They're getting Mark Andrews back. Their defense is great. I can't believe that the Titans aren't putting more consideration toward Mike McDonald to be their new head coach, defensive coordinator for the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens' defense is stacked. Lamar Jackson's just playing out of his mind. Their offensive line's protecting well. I mean, who's going to stop the Ravens? I mean, I know the Chiefs are coming to town, but Ravens look like they're going to be tough to beat. 49ers, they don't necessarily look tough to beat. I mean, the Packers had them. I thought the Packers, thought the Packers had them, but, there's probably a lot of regret in Green Bay after the way that game went, because Green Bay, I mean, they had it right in their grasp, and they let it go. They let them off the hook. And, give it to Brock Purdy. He put together the drive when he needed it at the end. I've seen a lot of people who are skeptical of Brock Purdy. I've seen a lot of people who are saying, hey, kid's not any good. All I know is he's getting ready to play in the NFC Championship game. That's all I know. All I know is it's a weird thing to say that he had a bad night the other night when it's like, no, he booked his ticket to the NFC title game. He's one win from the Super Bowl. Like, he didn't have a bad night because he won. Are there other quarterbacks that are better? Yes. Is he a system quarterback? Probably. Would he be good anywhere else? I'm skeptical of that. But the fact of the matter is, he's one of the last four left. So who cares? However you got there, you're there. So, kudos to the Niners. I think Deebo Samuel going out of that game the other night obviously had a big effect on them. Green Bay missed that kick. Jordan Love, there's a lot to look forward to in Green Bay. If you're a Packers fan with Jordan Love, I think he's going to be good. I just think, obviously, late in the game, that decision to throw across his body into triple coverage, that was insane. That was a ludicrous thing to do. But, the Packers should feel, I know it probably still stings, but the Packers should feel encouraged with the way things went. To get to where they got to, you beat up on Dallas, you had San Francisco on the ropes. There's a lot to be encouraged about there in Green Bay. And San Francisco, they got a team coming to town this week that's just out of their minds right now. That's the Detroit Lions. The Lions beat the Bucks. Somebody explain to me. First of all, I get the analytics say like the whole going for two when you're down by 2 scores, you score a touchdown, you go for 2, make it a 6-point game. I get all of that, but I hate it. I hate it. I know, it worked for the Titans in Miami this year. I'm not saying it doesn't work sometimes, but I hate the whole going for 2, down by 2 scores. But what I hate more than that, the Lions got the ball back. They're running out the clock. They took a knee super early, and the Bucks still had a timeout. It was 3rd down, and the Lions, for whatever reason, snapped the ball super early. And that was stupid. But what was even dumber than that is that the Bucks chose not to call their timeout. They just let the game end. If you call, it was 3rd down, you call a timeout, and the Lions have to punt it back to you. I'm not saying you have a high probability of winning. You've got no timeouts down by 8, but at least you have a shot to throw one up to Mike Evans or something. That was crazy. Either way, again, you got to feel good for Detroit, man. 30 years since they won their division, 32 since they got a playoff win, and now they're in the NFC title game. This has to feel like a dream to them. You know what it does? It gives hope to everyone. If you're a Titans fan or if you're a fan of another team that's had hard times like the Lions, this kind of gives you hope. Because, I sat there and watched the Lions go 0-16 in 2008. I've watched them have all of these horrible seasons where they've been the laughing stock of the league. But you know what? Things can turn around. Things could turn around in the most unlikely of ways. I don't think people thought that Dan Campbell was going to be the guy to turn things around in Detroit, but he has been. I don't think people thought that Jared Goff would be the guy to turn things around, but you got to feel good for him. He was an afterthought. When they traded Matt Stafford to the Rams and Goff came to Detroit, he was an afterthought. Like, he's going to come in here, he's going to be a placeholder quarterback till they can draft somebody they want. But look at this guy. Good for him. Good for him. Good for Detroit. And now the Lions have a tough test because now they have to go on the road to San Francisco. And, the 49ers better come ready because these Lions, man, they're playing inspired. They're playing out of their minds. Michael Williams says, who are you looking at hiring as the head coach? Talked about it earlier, but I'm wanting Brian Callahan. That looks like the most likely option. Looks like the best option for the Titans. Refreshing Twitter right now to see if there's any new news. Teresa Walker said, checking on it as we speak. That's an ominous tweet. That's it. People are wondering what she's talking about. Just said checking on it as we speak. That's literally all she said. People are freaking out. So I don't know. Gotta keep our eyes peeled the rest of the day. I'm thinking Brian Callahan. Dan Quinn's getting a second interview with Seattle today. A lot of people think Seattle will be a good fit for him because of his history there. B Ravens once said, "Gotta root for us or the team that made 3 of the past 4 Super Bowls." I think that it's an interesting thing, man. I've got a lot of close friends who are not football people who have become fans this year because of Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce. Like, they're actually like into it. And to me, that's cool. To like see friends that I don't normally get to talk football with that are suddenly wanting to talk football because they're actually like getting into it. And last night they were like, surely the Chiefs can beat the Ravens, right? Like, because they're coming to me with all of their questions about who's good and who's not. And I was like, Kansas City better eat their Wheaties on Sunday, because I've just been very impressed by the Ravens this year. And it's the Ravens trophy to lose at this point. I think it's the Ravens to lose. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. We'll make picks on Friday, but the Chiefs, they are the closest thing we have to a dynasty right now. So that's a great matchup. The Chiefs and the Ravens. It's fitting that if the Ravens and Lamar Jackson want to get there, they've got to go through Old Faithful to get there. That's really all I got today. We've got the head coaching search raging on. Callahan, Quinn, Brown, maybe some other people. I don't know. But the Titans could be any minute now. They'll hire a new head coach. When they do, there will be a bonus episode. Just be on the lookout for that. Even if it's like later today, we might have to do another bonus episode today if the news drops later, but we'll see. And then we will be back Friday making picks for the AFC and NFC title game, talking about whatever comes to mind. God bless you guys. This is the Two Tone Talk by God Pod. Thank you guys. Be sure to sub on YouTube. Be sure to follow me on Twitter X at @twotone_podcast. And I will definitely be back Friday, but I'll be back before then if we make a hire. Thank you guys. Tighten up. Bye, everybody. Feel free to dance. Feel free to sing. Just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on you. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be.